Alan, I did this a long time ago, very, very long time. But I can remember something. We're talking about the actual devices that are used, and I seem to remember at this time in Elliot's life, he started a project to write a poem using the rhythms of jazz, which he abandoned. But this particular piece was an attempt to imitate the patterns of common speech.
Yeah.
And it's interesting.
Colloquial. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that when you read it, it flows in a different way.
Yeah, he does that a lot in The Wasteland. He actually puts comic songs in. I mean, we'd have to say that this musical theme was not just in poetry. I mean, people like Mondrian is an artist who's trying to paint jazz and paint music. Yeah. He wants the whole idea of an abstract art is they would sort of say, well, you don't expect a sonata to sound like a train or to sound like a bubbling brook. If you do, you're a child like it. It's not all Peter and the Wolf. Music is its own self. It doesn't have to remind you of something.
You think about it, it's quite daunting to just use common patterns of speech and elevate it to this level.
Completely so, yeah. And to do that, he has to move backwards and forwards.
In the middle of that, it says he's talking about the stillness of the violin while the note lasts, and then he says not that only, but the coexistence, or say at the end precedes. It's very conversational, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And it gives you the feeling he's trying to hammer it out in front of you.
Yeah. Grammatically, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's how people speak, I think.
Yes.
Or if there was T.S. Eliot, they spoke like that.
Well, we've got him. He's in that little box.
Right.
But what I think you'll find is that I have not heard this before. But I've heard his voice before, and he sounds. We'll let you discover it now. But I was quite amazed at how he sounds, and it's quite unreal.
Not the
But yeah, and what he thinks is colloquial is not probably what we think is colloquial, having been brought up on estuary English. But let's just finish off this last part of the poem, because this is where he's sort of getting to his point, in which he's going to try and pull all those concepts together and tie the knot at the end. Because remember, he didn't know he was going to write on the next three poems. Obviously he was unsatisfied with this, or felt there was more to squeeze from this form. But at this point he's trying to get it all together and nail it. The detail of the pattern is movement, as in the figure of the 10 stirs. Desire itself is movement, not in itself desirable. Love is itself unmoving, only the cause and end of movement, timeless and undesiring, except in the aspect of time, caught in the form of limitation between unbeing and being. Now that's one hell of a sentence. And you need to unpick it in bits and bobs, because what he's talking about is he's deliberately made it, I would call that PhD speak. You take a sentence, you bend it, you double it up, turn it back on itself so that people can't swallow it whole. You have to chew it. Most of the time you get a friend of mine used to say that awe is when you've got something in your mouth that's big, you can't swallow it. And you've got a concept that's big, you can't swallow it. And the way to defeat awe all the time is to bite it into small chunks. So if you have a look at that little bits, it'll be a reflection of the whole poem we come in. The detail of the pattern is movement. So we are caught on the movement of it. The whole, what God sees, what the eternal sees, is pattern. It is a complete and whole pattern. Now, I'm going to jump here a little bit, because some of you may have been doing yoga with me many years ago. And Eugene said I could release something, which is a little letter he'd written, not to me, to somebody, and it was called The Idea of Eternity. And we had a talk about it, and I gave these out to my class. Now if you're on email, I can maybe in a week or two's time email you some of these. It's the talk by Eugene, and it's exactly the same as what we're talking about here. We use the word eternity in three most main senses. Most generally, the word is taken to mean an unending extent of time. The word also can be used for that which is entirely timeless, for a state of being in which no movement is conceived to occur. The third use of eternity refers to that which includes but transcends time in itself, is conceived to be a process of events occurring in serial order, a whole series of events occurring within some substance itself. So what he's saying is exactly the same as Elliot. He's saying that there is a substance which is time, and it makes possibility, and life is, there's the movement of a life in a pattern. Now that's a thread going right the way through that pattern. Now these are Islamic patterns. They're sacred patterns in the sense that they're meant to respect aspects of God. They're abstract, but they are, if you like, meaningful in the sense that you can see how the unity of the world can be built up out of tiny, unrepetitive forms of behaviour. Now, what I did to people, we made this into a colouring contest, and people had to bring them back the following week all coloured in, and I gave a prize. I think it was box of Smarties or something. If you find individual themes in that, it's amazing just how the patterns are constructed, how simply the lines are, and how convoluted the interrelationships get between them. And the text, I find, is really quite lovely and very, very akin to what we're saying here. Just quote from here. So with the things of time we may select from amongst all the things presented to us those the form of which gives us the greatest pleasure. It may be the best house, the best man for a husband, the best woman for a wife, the best car, the best clothes, and so on. And whilst we are admiring the objects of our choice in this way, this is the routine that we've just been talking about, we forget the eternal, the real substance. When we think of only things of time, and we value only the things of time, and worship only the things of time, we are called, and rightly, we are called idolaters. For as the waves on the ocean cannot exist of themselves independently of the ocean, so the things of time cannot exist of themselves independently of the eternal power, which is the substance of God. The things of time are only effects, they are not causes. They are relatively superficial appearances brought into existence by the action of the supreme cause which is hidden in eternity. If we do not wish to be superficial, if we wish to relate to reality and to each other in depth, we must learn to see what lies under the wave patterns of the human soul. We must learn to feel the movements of the infinite spiritual power, which is the substance and sustainer and origin and the goal of all things. We must learn to believe that underneath all the things and purposes of time stands the other purpose, the purpose that comprehends all the purposes and gives them whatever significance they have, the purpose of eternity, the purpose of the infinite hidden God within whose hands we are held, and we will be held forever. So, I'll try and get this into an emailable form to anybody. You can give me their email address and I'll try and get them one if you're interested. Okay. That's it. I added the pictures. The text is just pure holiday. There isn't much text, but what there is pretty powerful stuff. And it's Bert Norton on a stick, if you like. You know, suck it and see. It's very, very readable and very, very approachable. Now, there's one other thing which I wanted to mention to you, which, in a sense, if you're not careful, can denigrate the thing. I've mentioned to you that T.S. Eliot worked at Faber and Faber, and he would have been on the board of people in 1924, I think it was, that actually approved a book by a man called Dunn, J.W. Dunn. It was a very interesting book. It was called An Experiment with Time, and